We're coming up on weeks 7 and 8, and these are the weeks in our course that are best going to prepare you for your individual speech. If you want specific information about your individual speech and how you will do it, go about doing it, and sending it to me, then you can read lessons 7 and 8. And you might want to read those in tandem because they are very integral to each other. And this recording is really an extension of lesson 7 in order to prepare you for doing your individual speech, which is lesson 8. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of how you might be able to find sources for your individual speech. I'm not a big fan of websites like Wikipedia. One of the things that you're required to do for this speech is to cite 2 different sources within the body of your speech. And when you do that, you typically give me the name, the author, and the date that the study or that the resource, where it came from. Penn State recently started doing something called Lion Search, you can see here, and it's this amazing tool that you can use to find scholarly, peer-reviewed journals that I would like you to try and utilize for your individual speech. At least one of your sources should be a scholarly journal if you can find something that's relevant to you, and I am sure that you can find something. Penn State recently had built this search engine called Lion Search, and I don't know if any of you have ever had to do resources for your other classes, but when you utilize something like Google Scholar, which is another way to find academic peer-reviewed journals, you may have noticed that you get caught up in in sort of a brick wall. You hit sort of a brick wall when you utilize this Google Scholar to get sources, like you have to pay for a source or you need a special login or something like that. As a Penn State student, you should never pay money for your sources. You should be able to find them through the library. So that's what I'd like to show you today, is a quick way how to do that in a scholarly journal. And while we're talking about what is a scholarly journal, I might as well tell you what that means. A scholarly article or journal, you probably hear about them quite frequently and just don't understand necessarily what that term means or where this idea of a scholarly journal is coming from. I want you to think about, I don't know how many of you watch the news, the nightly news, let's say the nightly news with Brian Williams. And a lot of times, and you see these kind of stories on CNN all the time, different news channels as well. NPR does a lot of things like this. But what they do is they'll start off a little bit of a special interest story, is what we call them. But these special interest stories are typically based on information that is coming out of academic resources. So for example, you'll see a story where they'll have maybe a small child playing outside. They follow their normal routine, talk about how they're a normal child, but then they'll switch to the child taking an insulin shot. And they'll talk about maybe something like childhood obesity or the rise of type 2 diabetes in children. And then they'll cut to another expert on the topic, and that expert usually has been doing research on this topic, and there's something new, cutting edge, or upcoming that this child might be participating in a study, or maybe this child could potentially benefit from in the future. That is how scholarly information is typically delivered to the public at large. But what you guys are going to do is actually go to that primary source instead of citing something like a news program or something that you heard about. You're actually going to read that study. And that's really what I'm looking for when I say that I want at least one academic journal to be used. And I'll show you a great way you can do that. It's through Lion Search. So I'm on the library front page and I just click that Lion Search button. Okay, so I gave you the example of childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes before. So if I go to Lion Search and type in childhood obesity and click search library, it's going to give me a lot of sources, over 100,000. That's a lot of sources. Clearly, we want to limit our search topic. So if I go over to the left, I'm given a couple of choices that are helpful to me. Mainly, what I'm looking for are a limit to articles that are from scholarly publications. and that cut me down to about half of what I had when I started. Okay, so I can continue refining my search. We'll say type 2 diabetes. Let's see what happens then. Okay, 19,000 results. Again, I want to limit to articles from scholarly publications. So what does that mean? What does the scholarly publications thing that I keep saying, what does that mean? A scholarly publication is typically done at a Research One institution, just like Penn State, or some sort of hospital, teaching hospital, or some area that has a lot of credibility in terms of research. But not only is it the institution that the research takes place at, it's the way in which the article becomes available to the public and the academic community. What a journal editorship means is that it's comprised of the best people who are considered experts in the field. So for an article on childhood obesity, something that has been limited to a scholarly publication probably has a panel of experts on diabetes who are reviewing that information, the study, the validity of the study, the credibility of the study. And if it's good, not just good, excellent. It usually can make it to publication in a journal like the New England Journal of Medicine or the American Medical Association would be another excellent journal to get published in. So that is really what I mean by scholarly journal, and those peer-reviewed are the peers of people who are study the same thing that you do. It's a very big deal to get something published in a scholarly journal and scholarly article. It's way easier, obviously, to launch a web page, a .com or a .net or any kind of search engine that you want to choose from these days, and launch a website that might not have credible information. So I'm looking, again, for you to give me some information on a scholarly journal that will enhance your presentation. So this has just been a short tutorial on how to do that through Lion Search, and I hope that you guys find it very useful. As you can see already, from 100,000 results, I was able to get down to 13,000. That's still way too many, but it will help you a lot using Lion Search. And if you have any more questions on what I mean by a scholarly article, please feel free to contact me. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.